られないでも諦めない木箱拳握りしめこの運命と明日の記憶いつ砕いて守るよ
The suppression team moved quickly and efficiently. It made Kane proud to be in command. They were a well-oiled machine. It didn't take long for the warehouse to be surrounded, with various soldiers already entering the building, Kane behind them. One officer touched his shoulder to get his attention.
Sir, we found something.
Kane immediately followed the officer to a back room where several other men were examining a body.
Definitely killed by a vampire, sir.
The Blue Wolf bent down to investigate, his eyes widened in surprise and rage. He recognized the scent from the dead compromiser's neck.
Radio base. We found the missing compromiser. Then, get me Genai and the President. We have major problems. The zealous Thunder God is back.
Jiro groaned. Could the day get any worse, he wondered. He suddenly wished he was in Mimiko's room protecting her, and not hearing what Genai had to tell him.
Kane took a team to search for the missing compromiser. I'm still waiting to hear back from them.
Genai noticed how tense the Silverblade had become. He didn't blame him, but Mimiko was all right. With 3 guards in her room, nothing could happen, he told himself. And they were only just down the hallway. Surely the fanatical vampire group wouldn't go so far as to break into a hospital. And if they did, a message would get out before anything happened. After all, the grounds were crawling with guards. Genai's cell phone rang. He quickly fished it out and answered.
This is Genai.
He listened for a moment, his shoulders suddenly going tense.
You're certain? You're absolutely certain?
He listened for another minute.
Send them immediately.
He flipped the phone back into his pocket, standing abruptly. Jiro stood as well.
What is it?
The news couldn't be good, that was certain.
It's Kanaye.
Genai quickly went for the door.
Kanaye?
Jiro was frozen in a momentary shock. Everything that Zelman had told him about the vampire ran through his mind.
Mimiko!
He pushed past the red blood into the hallway, running towards the compromiser's room.
Mimiko!
He burst through the door, already knowing something was wrong. He smelled a lot of blood. The 3 guards were on the ground, either unconscious or dead. The cart the nurse had brought in was overturned. Mimiko's bed was empty, the window thrust as far open as it would go.
No!
Various personnel came running. Genai had to push through to get into the room.
What's going on?
But he didn't need to ask as he looked around.
Jiro!
The black blood looked like he was about to jump out the window. His hair was wild.
I'm gonna kill them!
Genai ran over and grabbed him by the arm, trying to pull him back inside, futile as the effort was.
Jiro, wait!
Let go of me!
Jiro tried to fling the man away, but he hung on. The chief gave another tug. There was no way he could really restrain the black blood, but he had to make him see reason.
Listen to me, Jiro. You can't go out there. Not unarmed. You're not dealing with mindless Kolu and children, but a group of trained vampires led by a mastermind. You can't just beat your way past them.
Jiro knew Genai was right, but he couldn't just sit back and do nothing either. His body shook with emotion. He had lost someone he loved once. He would not, could not, do it again. He slumped against the wall as thoughts of Alice filled his mind, overlapped by thoughts of Mimiko. The black blood let out an anguished cry.
No!
Seeing reason start to return to the Silverblade, Genai let him go. He watched him, realizing some of the thoughts that were going through his mind.
If they really just wanted Mimiko dead, they wouldn't have bothered taking her with them. We have some time, Jiro. Time to plan and find them. Let's make use of that time.
Jiro steadied himself, one fist clenched. If they really had wanted to just kill her, he would be holding her lifeless body right now. What they had planned for her had to be much worse. He had to be ready.
I need to retrieve my blade.
He went to get his hat and coat from the chair. The red blood stood back to let him pass.
I'll have the suppression team start searching. They can't have left the special zone, and I doubt they've gone too far. But that still leaves quite a large area. We'll need to coordinate from the central location, probably the central headquarters. I'll call in all our resources. We will find her.
Jiro finished putting on his coat and hat and headed for the door.
I'll stop by once I've gathered my things, in case you've discovered anything.
He promised more out of obligation than because he meant it. Genai watched him leave.
Hurry, Silverblade. We really don't have that much time.
It had almost been too easy. Only the guards had put up a fight, and they hadn't really known what was coming. Who would have suspected the nurse of all people? They hadn't even had to kill anyone outright, though it probably wouldn't have hurt the mission. Of course, there was a bit of resistance, and some blood had been spilled, but everything had gone according to plan. Once the guards had been incapacitated, it had been an easy matter of moving the Katsuragi girl, though they'd laid false trails in case her other protectors came back earlier than planned. The window had been a nice distraction while they'd moved from room to room, and once safely on the ground level, they'd had a taxi ready to take them out of reach while blending in. It was too easy, but that was how a good plan was carried out, and everything else had already been taken care of. No loose ends. Cheska glanced at the unconscious girl beside her. She'd voted on putting her in the trunk, but had been overruled by the driver. Kanye wanted his catch unharmed, at least for now.
I don't see what the Thunder God wants with her. If you ask me, she's just another filthy vampire-loving human who deserves to die.
The driver didn't comment. He only glanced back in the mirror with raised brows. Something would have to be done about this, he decided. Jiro raced home, not bothering with the conventional means of travel. Even though taking a taxi would have saved him some sun exposure, it would have taken far longer than he wanted to spend, so he endured it, jumping from building to building, running along rooftops as he raced against time. Everything inside him told him he had to hurry. It took less than a fourth of the time he would have taken by car to safely reach the rooftop of his apartment. Within a few seconds, he'd used the hide hand to open a window to get inside. Another 30 seconds, and he was running down the stairs, silver katana in hand. He thrust open the door to the outside, pausing as an unfamiliar scent bombarded him. He quickly looked around, opening his senses as he held his katana at the ready. Something white caught the corner of his eye, and he went over to investigate. It was a piece of paper that reeked of vampiric blood. The red letters were still drying in the slight breeze.
We have her, Jin Killer. If you want her back alive, come find us before it's too late.
He didn't need anyone to tell him who they'd meant. What he didn't completely understand was why they were baiting him. Their leader had to have taken an interest in him as well, and not in a good way. He thrust the paper into his pocket and took off towards the company's central headquarters. After all, he had promised to stop by, and he was a man of his word, even if he didn't always like it. Cheska set her burden down on the concrete floor, none too gently. The whole ride back was so boring that she couldn't contain herself. The lust for blood was building, and she wanted what she'd been promised.
Here's your brats.
She kicked the compromiser as her leader entered the room. Kanye calmly walked over to the prone figure on the floor. She looked a little worse for wear, he decided, and totally unresponsive. He couldn't have that. She had to be conscious by the time her precious Silverblade came to save her. It made it all that much more fun. He looked at his slave, for that was how he saw her. He noted the bloodlust in her eyes. She'd be a menace to his plans if she stayed there.
You may leave.
It would make things easier if she believed she was being extended a favor instead of a punishment. Her eagerness was commendable, but he could see the defiance in her eyes.
Join the front ranks. I'm sure they'll see some excitement soon.
And, with luck, she'd be one of the first to feel the company's wrath because he knew that many of his followers would. She was so bothersome that he didn't care what happened to her.
And send in that nurse before you leave.
Central headquarters felt like a war zone. Monitors flashed as reports started coming in about vampire attacks on civilians. Chaos was starting to fill the special zone, perhaps not on the same scale as with the Kowloon children, but it was still a threat to the peace and had to be stopped. And despite there being less numbers of attackers, they were definitely better organized. Commanders issued orders to their troops via radios as they tried to suppress the chaos as much as possible.
I had no idea.
Janai watched tiny blips appear on the screen, signifying areas of confirmed attacks. So far, only a few real casualties, but things were getting bad.
How were they able to bring so many in under such a short amount of time?
This is Kanai we're dealing with. You realize that, don't you?
Zelman's voice came from behind. The red blood whirled around to see him enter the room, hands in his pockets.
His charismatic personality attracts many people, though I can't say all of them are quite loyal. I'm willing to bet that those attacking humans right now are those he managed to convince by subterfuge alone, and aren't true followers. Like hyenas looking for an easy kill, They may believe in the same ideals as he does, about the red bloods, but not necessarily the same morals, if you know what I mean.
Janai stood in shock. It took him a moment to compose himself.
That may be true, but that still doesn't explain how they all got into the special zone.
Zelman leaned against one of the many consoles.
Does it really matter? It could have been through any number of ways. My guess is that it was through the compromiser. Chihiro, was it? She seemed the type to lust after what they had to offer her. And look what she got for it.
Janai gave a disapproving frown, but he couldn't deny it. He'd had his own suspicions about the girl, though he hadn't known why until now. But that was neither here nor there. He looked towards the doorway anxiously. Jiro was late.
Janai, Zelman.
The two men looked up at the observation deck to see Sei, the Dragon King of the East, peering down at them, his dark glasses hiding his closed eyes.
Lord Dragon.
Janai inclined a slight bow. Zelman offered his own sign of respect, a nonchalant shrug of the shoulders.
Have you found where they're keeping Mimiko yet?
Behind him, Zhang Lei Kao, the former vampire hunter, stood at the ready, hands at his side.
Not yet. They were more clever than we anticipated. We have been combing the area, but with the various attacks on civilians, it makes it more difficult.
Sei looked upward, presumably viewing the monitors.
I see. Where is Jiro?
The vampire in question entered the room as he finished speaking.
I'm here, Sei.
One hand gripped his katana. He pulled out the note he'd found on his door.
I found this on my way over. It would seem they're after me as well.
Sei used the hide hand to take the paper from him, examining it.
A vampire's blood? One of theirs?
I believe so. I'm sure I can follow the scent to the source, but I think that's what they want.
Janai stepped in.
It sounds like a trap. You can't possibly think of walking right into it, can you?
The Blackblood stared solemnly at the chief.
If I don't, Mimiko will die!
But if you go, there's no guarantee you both won't die.
Even though he wanted to protect his daughter, he knew he also had to protect Jiro in any way he could. Zelman watched the exchange with small patience.
Oh, come on. If we work this right, no one has to die. Problem solved. Everyone goes home happy.
The two Old Bloods and their companions stared at the crimson-eyed Zelman.
Oh, what's the big deal? Sure, Kanai's a real pain in the ass, and not just some schoolchild. But he does have his weaknesses. He's a control freak like most tyrants. Play that to your advantage and you'll unset him. It's child's play.
This won't be like the last time, Zelman. This time we'll be dealing with him personally, not just some of his followers. He means to destroy the special zone, along with his other vendettas. He won't back down easily.
Zelman smiled.
It wouldn't be a challenge if he did.
He let his fangs show through his smile.
You're forgetting what happened last time. If the Silverblade can get over his aversion to working with me, I'm sure we can handle the main issue while everyone else works the cleanup. We just have to find them first.
Sei looked from Zelman to Jiro.
Can you do this, Jiro?
Jiro ground his teeth. He didn't like the idea of working with Zelman, but the older vampire did know more about Kanye than he did, and that would only strengthen their side.
Yes.
Sei nodded.
Very well. Then I will send Zhang and Kane with you to open the way. I must stay here and keep the barrier.
My lord.
Zhang started to protest, but stopped, turning his words into acceptance at the look on Sei's face.
It will be as you wish.
He bowed.
Jiro, Zelman, hurry. I feel that Mimiko doesn't have much time.
The two vampires saluted the Dragon King, then headed for the door.